Sorry, I just read a
Hello.
thing meme. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Beautiful day out.
everyone. It is beautiful. It's beautiful out. It's not raining. It's so nice.
Yeah. So
Winding
today we're going to
down.
talk about closing costs. So if you're somebody looking to purchase a home, you have to know that there's additional costs involved that are above and beyond a down payment. So,
Correct. And
yeah,
I tell buyers too, they're like, well, what is closing costs? I'm like, I don't know.
that's a
Just
really
kidding.
good
Yeah.
I've been doing
question.
this 20 years, and that's a great question. I just say it's basically a bunch of fees that you're paying to borrow the money. The bank's charging
Yeah,
you these fees to do all the work for you and put your loan together and for borrowing the money.
yeah. And
So,
that's why it's also good to get your itemized fee worksheets. If you're comparing lenders, you definitely want to get an itemized fee worksheet that's going to show what that lender is charging. For the most part, we should all be okay across the board, right? So what are closing
right.
costs? They're usually, I will say, you're probably looking at about 1% of the sales price when you're looking at give or take for closing costs. So that's going to be the lender fee. The lender fee typically consists of underwriting, processing, credit reports, credit monitoring. Like it's usually all in one fee, or it's going to be broken down. Like we tend to put ours in one fee, which is roughly $1,920. And then you have your appraisal fee that is done typically on every file unless there's an appraisal waiver. Appraisal fees will start at $485 and they can go up slightly from there depending on if it's an FHA loan, a VA loan, is it a condo? Like those types of things will increase the cost of an appraisal.
Yes. And if the lender's requiring repairs and the appraiser has to go back, there'll also be an additional fee
Thank you. A
that the appraiser is going
reinspection
to
fee.
charge you to reinspect. The
Yes.
most recent one was 150 that I think I
Yeah.
had.
I was just going to
So
say
around
starts at
there.
about 125. Yep.
Mhm.
And there's an attorney fee in Illinois. Wisconsin does not have an attorney fee, but Illinois does. So you're looking at starting around $600. And title. So title work. Title in Illinois is higher. You're probably looking at starting at $3,400 roughly for title fees. Wisconsin, it's usually around $920 starting. So you can see the
Yeah.
difference.
I'd say on average, it's probably like half
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you look at it. So,
So, I mean, and then you're looking at your prepaid items. That's your other set of closing costs. So prepaids are always going to be the escrow money. So we're going to take reserves for property taxes, for homeowners insurance. So we have enough money to pay your tax bill and your insurance bill when they come due in the future. If you're somebody that has 20% down, you have the option to not come up with that extra money. You can waive your escrows and pay your taxes and insurance on your own, which I like. If somebody is responsible with their money and they've got money in savings, I think go for it. Waive your escrows as long as you're not going to spend that money.
yeah.
Because then
I did on my second home because I was more worried about committing to a larger payment.
correct.
And I'm not responsible with my money. I don't have it saved, but it's an up north house and the taxes and insurance are pretty small.
Reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, so it's
Well,
not like here. And I just pay it in the 2 installments and be done with it. So it kept my payment like super low. So
it does, because then you only send the lender your principal and interest payment monthly. That's it.
mhm.
So at least, at the very least, and this is good for people that might get commission income or bonus income, like, bursts of income where it's just better for them to budget better. But I will always review my clients, the borrowers that I'm working with. And if it's somebody that I know could get themselves in trouble, I'll give them the option, but I will not advise it at all.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to lose your house because you can't pay your tax bill.
Right.
Right. So when you're looking at that, then you put that in addition to your down payment money. But in Illinois and Wisconsin, but technically Illinois, there's room for, you're going to get credits at closing as well. So that helps offset some of those fees. And then when you're dealing, like I'm dealing with them, telling them these are your closing costs, these are your prepaids, but you, when you're showing them a house and you go under contract, you're going to pay earnest money, right?
Mhm.
So earnest money's
Well,
paid
and
up
just to
front.
go back, like when you give them their closing costs, and I will say, I get this is probably one of the biggest questions I get is like, why is it so much? And like,
Yeah.
it's because of the credits. So your credit for your earnest money, any seller credits, but mainly like when you're just looking at a snapshot, it's because of like the tax credits you're going to be getting. So that number can change drastically because of those.
Yeah.
And a lender's always going to estimate high because they
We
get
have
in
to.
trouble if you estimate low. They have to estimate high. So not that you
Yeah.
should always be like, oh, that's, it's going to be a lot lower.
Yeah.
But just know that it can look scary, but those credits haven't come on there yet.
100%. Those credits should help drastically bring down that cash to close. And it's another reason that I always work up that chart. Because when you're seeing all this information on the initial mortgage forms, the mortgage forms are not going to show the credits because there's specific things that we have to show that they have the money for. They might not be bringing that amount to the closing, but you still have to show that you have it. So yeah, but that's like the second half of it is, okay, well, where do I get this money? If I only have money saved for my down payment and maybe a little portion of the closing costs, where do I come up with all this extra money? So you can do it, right? We do it in forms of mortgage products. Like maybe you're eligible for the 0% down loan, the USDA. Maybe you're if you're a first-time buyer, there's 3% down mortgages. And then there's the 5% down mortgage for anybody that isn't a first-time home buyer. There's always the FHA loan that's 3.5% down. And then you can start getting into getting more creative. Is there room to request a seller closing cost credit? Do you have a 401k account through your work? A lot of first-time home buyers do not realize you can borrow against your 401k with, well, I don't want to say without penalties, but you should be able to do that as a first-time home buyer. You want to call your provider and find out if you can do that.
Yes. And you can, Laura's great. I mean, I know when I talk to a lot of first-time buyers, she'll if she doesn't know a program where you're looking to buy a house, she will dig up some kind of program to help you get in a house. So like, all those first time home buyer credits and assistance, that's, extra cash. So I think the numbers seem so big and cumbersome when you're thinking like, oh, I got to save all this money. And we've talked about this. Everyone thinks you need 20% down. I got to save all this money down. And now I have these closing costs and I got this and it's just it seems so out of your reach. And that's why we keep hammering, like encouraging you to get together with, one of us and, at least get that roadmap set because it could be a lot closer than what you think with some of these different creative things. And we are seeing some houses, not all, because we're still seeing multiple offers, but there are some out there that have been on the market for a while that we are seeing, some movement in price or seller credits or, a combination of the two. So don't be intimidated by the big numbers because we can break it down and there's ways we can get that money for you. Lastly, you could get a gift too.
Yeah.
Get a gift from your parents. You can get a gift. Does the gift have to come from a family member?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends. But for the most part, it should come from a family member or like a fiance, or if
somebody
you guys
close.
are living together. Yeah, there's ways to.
So don't be intimidated by closing costs.
The best way to receive a gift, and again, just talk to somebody that's knowledgeable because I can see how frustrating it could be for a first-time home buyer to try to do their homework online and see, maybe there's calculators out there that's going to show you what, you have to bring to the table. And you're going to see this number and you're going to be like, oh my God, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
But the reality
Yes.
is, Danielle just
Yeah.
said it. We put together this chart. I put together a chart for you, and I line item every single fee involved in the transaction. And then I will take it a step further and show you every credit that's going to be due to you. And then you're like, whew, thank you for bringing that large
Right.
amount down
Yes.
to a
Like,
doable number.
and great point about the like looking at these numbers online because you don't understand them. So you're just like, it doesn't make a lot of sense on a lot of these apps. And Laura and I
Right.
just recently have a mutual client that we're working with, and this just happened where the closing costs on her worksheet, Laura worked up for her for a certain property, were about half of what she was seeing online. And I'm like, that's because there's no tax credit. Like, and that online is missing so many pieces to the puzzle,
Yes.
that number is going to be crazy off the charts.
And
So
since you're talking about that specific scenario, we might as well talk about even when buyers are using the calculators for the mortgage payment. Like my mortgage chart that I gave this borrower, my numbers were lower. And she kept wanting to know, well, no, I'm sorry. My numbers were higher for the monthly mortgage payment
yes.
all in. That was with taxes and insurance. And she couldn't understand why the numbers were lower when she would complete the online calculators. And it's because they weren't pulling the proper tax bill. They weren't doing the
Yes,
extra
the current
homework.
tax bill had a credit, a senior freeze. So that algorithm and calculator she was using was going off the current tax bill that's posted. Well, you have to do the math because you're not a senior citizen and that
Right.
tax bill's going to go up. And so when you do that, then you get Laura's numbers. So trust us, trust the process. If you want to look online, there's nothing, we're never going to stop people from doing it because they
Right.
are just going to. But then when you're kind of looking, and then when you really want to know, you're going to need to reach out. I wouldn't, especially with the number stuff, because I think
Yeah.
so many people do that online and then they get like scared or they
Yes.
get the opposite. They get super excited and it's like, no, you
Yeah.
can't afford
That's
that.
true.
That
Right.
calculator was wrong. So
That's so
definitely
true.
reach
Like
out.
online access is great, but when you start digging at it and you're a first-time home buyer, it really is a recipe for disaster for you, quite honestly, because you start making assumptions that there's no way you could be a homeowner, and it really is not that difficult to become a homeowner.
Right.
It boils down to what your credit score is, your income, and if you have down payment funds, really. And if, do you have any negative derogatories in your past, like bankruptcy and if you do, that's okay also, but you have to wait a specific waiting period.
Right.
Right. Well, thanks, Laura, for that lecture on
Yeah, that was
closing
good.
costs, because sometimes I don't know what they are. And then just a reminder, you can go back. Last month we did a video like you got the house, now what? So your offer's been accepted and now what? And we kind of talked about those costs that kind of come out of pocket that, you're going to see your closing costs from your lender being, let's say 10 grand all in. And then I'm also telling you now you got to put $5,000 down in earnest money that you get credited. It's already there at the title company. Think of it that way. You've already deposited that. We protect it with contingencies again. And then you're going to be paying for any inspections you're going to want to do. So that's going to also that comes out of your pocket. It can go on a credit card, but again, be careful with that. They take cash, check, charge. So that is not a credit, and that you're going to pay for out of pocket. So I would anticipate having, it's nice to have like an extra $1,000. If you got to pay a contractor for an estimate or different inspections, you're probably not going to spend that, but it's nice I would go into it mentally preparing that. I might spend $1,000 in different inspections depending on what I want to inspect. So just go back and rewatch that video because that'll help. Like once you get the house, step by step what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think what are we talking about next week?
Oh gosh, I wrote it down and I don't have it in front of me.
Calendar.
Oh, there's a baby. Oh, were we talking about sellers closing costs?
I think so.
I believe
That is
so.
one.
I think
sellers closing costs, and then
Yes.
we'll go over it. I'll post
Yes.
the schedule.
Yes, we don't have a calendar yet, Lindsay.
Yeah,
the
the
schedule.
calendar's done. I just need to text it to you guys. It's
Yeah.
ready. And then we'll probably, hopefully, be better about posting at a certain time. you know, with summer's here, our schedules are
Our
all crazy.
schedules are crazy.
So maybe
And
once
then
I think
we're
I'd
going
like
to do
to
that
take that
buyer
once in a while.
seminar.
Once in a while, too.
Yeah. That buyer seminar is coming up. So again, if this video, if you were like, wow, that was kind of interesting and I'd like to learn more, you know, somebody that's thinking about buying, this is going to be a fun seminar. We're going to do, you know, we're going to have kind of a template of what we want to talk about, but we're just going to kind of wing it. And if you have questions and it kind of goes in this direction, that's okay. So we want to make sure you're getting the information that you're thirsting for.
We were talking about that, and we find that it's much more easier and relaxed for home buyers to take it as a Q&A session, almost like you throw your questions out there and we're going to answer them for you. So
yes. So if you think of any questions, post them in our comments, reach out to one of us so we can better prepare for that. But that's coming up in a few weeks. So we'll get some info out and the link to sign up for that. So hope everybody enjoys this beautiful day. It's so nice out.
Yes. All right, everyone. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, guys.